Hello, and welcome to MetaGaming. Today is the 2nd of June, and today's topic is post-launch support for games, and a word I dare not say because the YouTube comments will violently explode just because I said it. DLC. Boogeyman! Boogeyman.
Alright. Hi, Llama.
Hi.
It's Llama Chomp, by the way. I'm Lollash.
I didn't do introductions. I'm terrible.
No, that's right. This isn't about professionalism. This is about us, complaining at the end of every 2 weeks about something stupid we've seen.
So it's like I wanted this to be, when it was envisioned, was this well-researched, thoughtful discussion. And really it's one guy in Twitch chat made me upset about this last week. That's...
Llama, have you turned up Uvu in the Windows volume settings?
Oh, you're loud in my headphones. I used that to check, which was probably terrible.
That was a bad idea.
Yeah. Open volume mixer.
Super.
Turn that up.
Yeah, we are super prepared today. So, I was definitely not asleep 12 minutes ago.
I was definitely not spending the half an hour before the stream struggling with Microsoft account security, trying to get Skype logged in on some device somewhere, because that's the only way I have to make anything in Lollash's house beep.
Oh dear.
I mean, you would have been here. You would have been here half an hour before the show if my Skype had just been logged in.
Can I turn myself up at all? Probably not. No, I can't.
Okay. I can turn you up a little bit more in the mixer here if I am clever.
One day, Llama, one day we will work out how to make this actually work.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, if we're lucky.
I need some better... I mean, right now, I am using, are the green bars about the same length when we talk in the OBS software to try and do sound balancing. Mm-hmm. And, I bet if I had a better, more professional piece of software, I could get these levels more even, more easily.
Especially for something like D&D. Anyway, so let's talk about... Okay, so when we talk about post-launch support, yes, we are going to talk about DLC, the dreaded thing that everybody dreads and so many people get mad about. And we're going to talk about a few of the games we've been playing. But we're also talking about post-launch support in the form of patching and free updates and community conversation, like the engagement of the developers with the community. Because post-launch support is a multi-tiered thing, and there are so many different elements to it. And I find it a really interesting subject because there are do's and don'ts. And some of the do's are done by companies that you would never expect them to, and some of the don'ts are done by huge AAA developers. And in the middle of it all is us, the gamers. And there is a vocal minority within the gaming community who they don't... I feel like they don't know how to say what they want to say, right? And I'm going to hopefully help with explaining things, and Llama's going to help. But
I'm going to be the cynic today, which we keep saying this is the reverse of our usual roles, but it keeps not being. But I'm at the point where I just think there are people in the world who really, really, really like being angry about stuff. And they don't need it to make sense to be angry. If anyone tells them that they can be angry about a thing, then they're going to be angry about the thing. Because that's really fun.
I don't understand it. Okay, so let's admit straight up, we're both going to have a bit of a rant.
Yeah,
to
that's
start
happening
this off
today.
It's going to happen, and we're both going to be a little bit mad. But we're going to be a little bit mad, and then justify our madness and explain why it's there and why it should be easily fixed. And we are going to try and be proactive about our ranting.
And hopefully we're going to be open-mindedly mad, because I am going to make some blanket statements and I am going to say some angry things, and then someone in a YouTube comment or someone in the Twitch chat is going to have this really reasonable explanation for the thing I don't understand, and I'm going to try really hard to read that and think it through and add it to my worldview instead of just saying, no, I'm angry about people being angry, which is pretty hypocritical.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about DLC, I think there's a really great point for us to start, and it's probably the most contentious piece of DLC I have ever seen, ever. Like, there is DLC that is obviously just shite, and there is DLC that is amazing, but this particular piece of DLC, oh my god, it was so divisive. I don't understand. So let's talk a little bit, Llama, about XCOM Alien Hunters to start with, as DLC goes.
Was it divisive from the people hate DLC because companies are evil and trying to bilk me out of all my money standpoint? Because that's the thing I'm upset about. If people don't like game design, which is the complaints I heard about Alien Hunters, where people thought the bosses were unfair, didn't like the new rules, and like the game was too hard, and they rage quit the game. Not that they felt like someone stole their money.
I spent a little bit of time reading, and I should have cherry picked and written down some of the reviews. But when I talk about divisive, right? So I didn't mean to boot XCOM 2, that was silly. There are certain elements of, when you talk about DLC, there was a big discussion, when I talk about Alien Hunters, there was a big discussion, and I feel so sorry for Firaxis around this. The reason I brought up Alien Hunters was, yes, people loved and hated the DLC. The content was different. Personally, I loved it. I thought it was an excellent addition to the game, but that's irrelevant. But there was a huge discussion around, well, a modder could have made this.
Oh.
Why should we have to pay for it?
Yeah.
And
okay.
I brought up Alien Hunters because I want to talk about, I have a little bit of insight, not a lot, but a little bit of insight through dealing with developers and through studying game development myself, of how development cycles work and how much money and man hours goes into creating content. All right. And there was a brilliant post, and I wish I could find it, that was written by another developer, not somebody from Firaxis. It was another developer, I think it was on Gama Sutra, talking about Alien Hunters because of this discussion that came up. And people complained and said modders could do this. And if I'm being honest, yes, modders could have done it. Why could modders have done it? Because Firaxis spent so much time and effort in making their game super moddable. Is that a bad thing? No, it is brilliant. We're going to get excellent mods because of it. Does that mean they're not entitled to invest thousands of man hours and, thousands, well, probably tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on creating new content and then selling it? I memean, it's their IP, right? Yeah. If they create these hyper-polished mods, does that make it bad for them to sell it?
I see, and the modders could have done it argument just sounds, and I'm going to offend people here, and I love you dearly, please don't be super offended. It sounds whiny to me. But I could have this for free. That's the complaint. The complaint isn't, I mean, I could have this for free. That's your argument. You just sound whiny. If somebody made a mod that was this in depth, that had this many new art assets, that had this much modification to how the game functions, right? We've changed the rules of gameplay. We've added a completely new enemy type that's not just the same sort of it gets 2 actions and has hit points. Like, it is new. And we've added new weapons. We've added a bunch of new content here. That is a lot of work, and that modders should get paid too. And so, like, my first complaint against my first rant against the people who get upset anytime there's any DLC is stop asking for things for free. That's stop. Things cost time and money and effort to make, and that time and money and effort should be rewarded. And the people who give it to you for free have spoiled you, and now you're a whiny brat.
So my role today in this conversation is I am going to guide Llama gently towards all of the elements of the whining about DLC that he hates, so that he can succinctly put his points of argument against those elements. So this was element number 1, right? Just because you've gotten extra content in the past from modders for free does not mean you're entitled to, thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of man hours just because. Well, and because they kept working on it.
And let me be frank. I mean, I have spent a lot of time defending my position on not wanting to download every mod that any person thinks is popular. And the reason for that is, how often are mods at the same level of quality and polish as DLC? I would say very, very, very extraordinarily rarely. Long War is a huge exception. And people are going to bring that up. But you played Long War, that's a mod. Yes, okay. That is a huge exception. Yeah. For the most part, if you want to get all your stuff for free, the price you're paying is your time and effort drudging through all the garbage and half-finished stuff and imbalanced debris to find one thing that's reasonable. I would gladly pay a developer $10 for me to avoid doing that with my time.
Yeah, and the first part of the argument against all of the DLC whiners is exactly that. Like, it takes even modders, right? And when there was the whole workshop modding scene and people being able to pay for mods surrounding Skyrim, this happened a while ago. I don't think we ever covered it.
No, we didn't.
On MetaGaming. But when Steam decided that it was going to allow modders to, have their mods paid for if they wanted, I was a huge supporter of the idea. Now, it was implemented atrociously, really badly, and that probably set the wheels back, years on it actually working and being implemented properly. But I am, if you've got a guy, imagine this, you love XCOM 2, and you invest every waking moment that you are not working or sleeping developing a change to the game, a new feature, something interesting and exciting that is polished and well-formed and has new art assets that maybe you paid somebody who does modeling to make for you because you wanted it to be the best of quality. And you've spent hundreds of hours of your life doing that, and you've done it as a passion project, but there's demand for it and other people want it. Why can't you sell that time?
Yeah.
And so the argument that it could have been done by a modder is irrelevant, because if a modder spent the amount of money Firaxis would have spent on Alien Hunters and spent the amount of man hours that Firaxis had spent on man hours, if I got that mod off Nexus forums or whatever, and I could see it was that well polished, you can bet your bottom dollar I would have donated $10 through PayPal or Bitcoin or whatever it was for that modder because I appreciate good work.
Yeah.
And if you can't appreciate that type of investment from a company in improving or continuing development on a game, then you don't deserve DLC. Play your vanilla gameplay and don't buy it if you're not happy to. So,
and at the end of the day, it's just an economic question. This is my main point today. This is the main reason people should stop whining. If it is not worth your money, don't buy it. If it is worth your money, do buy it. The only time you should complain is when someone promised something they didn't deliver and you paid for it with a very reasonable expectation to get something you didn't end up getting. If that's not what happened, if just complaining that DLC exists at all because they just want my dollars, then don't give them your dollars. You don't have to buy it. There are a lot of things in this world that I want and don't have because I have to prioritize how I use my limited money. And DLC is sometimes one of those things. And it just goes in that pile with all those other things that I'm also not mad at anyone about.
All right. Okay. So a quick foray away from the DLC arguments and into opinions, because we haven't actually given a formal review of Alien Hunters yet. Llama, what do you think about Alien Hunters DLC?
So my first impression has continued to be my impression.
Okay.
That first day that I started playing Alien Hunters, we got a few people coming in just complaining the game was broken and unwinnable and the bosses are unfair. And my first impression was, wow, I got destroyed. I need to learn how this works because it's different to the game I know. And that is my favorite thing about gaming. That's why I play strategy type games instead of reflex type games, is because I enjoy learning game mechanics and learning decision making more than I enjoy learning patterns of reflexes and muscle memory. And so for a piece of DLC to take a game that I've played so much and that I feel like I know so well and add something for me to learn was exactly perfect. Just spot on. I've also complained, my biggest complaint about XCOM 2 was that I spent a lot of the game not being afraid. I really wanted to legitimately lose some missions. And not lose them because I did something stupid, but lose them because they were too hard, and the tactically correct decision was to lose and live to fight another day instead of getting your whole squad killed. Like to have that shift happen in the middle of the mission where suddenly we're not playing to win anymore, we're playing to leave. That didn't happen to me enough before Alien Hunters, and it is happening to me after Alien Hunters. Soldiers are dying, and I don't feel like they died because I screwed up. I feel like they died because the game was hard, and that's what I want, and I think it's great.
My opinion on Alien Hunters, I went in blind. I avoided your streams until I got my hands on Alien Hunters and had the time to play it. And I sat down with it, and I'd never seen a leader alien, and I'd never seen any of the extra weapons or the first Alien Hunters mission, the Nest, or whatever it's called, or any of that. And I went in, and I encountered the first leader, and I pooped myself. But I had heard a couple of things. I'd heard the leaders have a reaction turn after you have a turn, like whenever you use a movement pip. So I went into that fight thinking, okay, every time I move, she moves. Or he, because he's the only, it's Viper King. And so I I was very careful about what moves I chose to make and using all of the things that I had at my disposal to minimize the amount of damage I would take. And I had a great experience, and I loved it. And I didn't die. I didn't even get wounded. I got frozen a couple of times, and I was lucky in that respect. But my first encounter, I felt really good because my brain had to go from clearing the trash to fighting the boss.
Yeah.
Like, it is a completely different mindset, and that was amazing for me. Then I encountered the Berserker Queen. Now, Firaxis, there's a little bug with your Berserker Queen. She doesn't like to be caught in tight spaces. Llama saw that. I got the Berserker Queen stuck in a truck, and she just sort of waddled back and forth and didn't do anything, and I managed to nearly kill her. The Archon, on the other hand, was terrifying. I know that some people have completely rage quit XCOM 2 because of the Archon.
Yeah.
I certainly took some injuries, didn't take any losses, didn't actually lose any soldiers to any of the leader aliens on my first playthrough. And I think it just shows that having a knee-jerk reaction, and this is like a huge thing about DLC as well, having a knee-jerk reaction to something changing or being different, like if you bite into an apple and it tasted like an orange, instead of spitting it out and throwing it across the room and being like, yeah, it's not an apple, you could go, oh, it's not an apple, but it's very interesting, it's an orange, and you could eat the orange and enjoy it, and it would be delicious, right?
Or
you need to...
Or you could stop and say, oh, this isn't an apple. What is it? It's very interesting. And you could decide that you prefer apples to oranges, and you don't like that flavor. But you don't have to do it by being mad and throwing the thing at the wall. Give it a second chance after the initial shock. Whatever your opinion is. Give it some time.
And take the opportunity. Last podcast we talked about discovery, right? We talked about learning a game through experiencing it, and this was a perfect example for me because I think I enjoyed the gameplay much better, or I enjoyed it much more because I'd kept myself blind, and I knew there were going to be leader aliens, and I knew they were going to be super threatening, and I'd kept myself mostly segregated from the information so I could experience it myself, and that made the DLC thoroughly enjoyable for me. If I had one complaint, there aren't enough leaders, and they don't stick around long enough.
Yeah, that was. I was hoping
like them to really stick around.
I was hoping, and it did this a little bit for me. The other complaint with XCOM 2 is the victory lap starts too early. And that's a complaint from players who play a lot of XCOM and spend some time with Long War because XCOM somehow wasn't hard enough. And this is a very elitist complaint. And I wanted my victory lap to be shorter. Victory laps are fun, but they're not fun if it's half the game. You get bored winning that hard for that long. And so Alien Hunters did push the victory lap a little further toward the end game because the Archon King is terrifying, and he exists a little later than you were ever terrified in the base game. But we could have one more. After the Archon leader, there could be a sectoid commander, and we could push the victory lap just that much further back. I'm picking up what you're putting down on that.
Yeah, so I recently beat a Commander playthrough, and Commander playthroughs are reasonably short, but even with the addition of Alien Hunters, I did it in less missions, and, it definitely pushed the victory lap back. I think I killed the Archon King shortly after researching Plasma, and then immediately went on to do the last, 4 story missions in a row. And I avoided the story missions because I needed to make sure I kept all of my soldiers fresh because I was scared of the various leader aliens. And I would have liked to see just one more, a really potent alien leader. Maybe, a leader with an escort, a sectoid or a big chrysalid, a chrysalid queen with a couple of smaller chrysalids. Or some kind of really threatening encounter just to extend that gameplay a little bit longer.
Yep.
But otherwise, I think Alien Hunters was brilliant. All right, and we need to get back onto our rant.
It's a good example of well-done DLC. I think that DLC adds at least $10 worth of enjoyment to that game.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it's absolutely worth paying $10 to fall back in love with XCOM 2. I hadn't played it for a couple of weeks because I finished it a couple of times and I was kind of done. And Alien Hunters has like reinvigorated it for me, and I get my whole game back and I get to play it again, and I'm having a great time. And the entitlement is the problem with this DLC debate, because let's do another thing that's going to just enrage people. I'm going to say words. I'm going to put some words in front of DLC, and if just saying DLC hasn't already gotten your hackles up, I'm going to put some words in front of it, and you're going to violently explode at me.
Don't do it.
On disc DLC. On disc. It's already on the disc. They already made it. How dare they already make it? And then sell it to me. How dare they? Do you hear yourself?
Yeah.
They already made the game and you bought that. These same people might be reasonably conceived as saying, I went and saw Star Wars 8 times in the theater. They already made it. Why did you pay for it 8 times? 8 times you paid for that. And you're not willing to pay for the disc you have in 2 pieces because I own that disc and I should be able to do anything I want with all of the data on it. Like, no.
So I want to talk a little bit about the development cycle and game design and development in general here, and then I think we'll move on to Total War Warhammer. When a studio decides to make a game, they create a scope. And that scope says, this is what the game will be, right? So, imagine, okay, you want to buy a house, and you have a budget. And that budget is 300,000 imaginary monies. And you decide, okay, we want our house to have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a study and a veranda with a barbecue on it. And this is our house. This is what we want to build, okay? So you go to a builder and you draw up plans and the building happens and everything is going smoothly. And you realize, oh, wow, this is only going to cost me 250,000 imaginary monies. I've got 50,000 imaginary monies left. That's outside my budget and outside my scope. I could invest that in making my artists do a little bit more work, and we could have fancy painted walls as well. But that's not what we were originally going to make. That's not what we were originally intending to sell. So what are we going to do with it? We're going to sell it as additional content. And companies will budget to do that. They will budget to make sure they've got enough money to be able to create DLC. Some companies won't create DLC until they know that their game is going to be successful. DLC is such a flexible way to invest your money because you can create the original project, you can create the original thing, and then you can tack stuff onto it that has its own core cost and price. And it's a business thing, and it's not a bad thing for the industry. It's actually really good because if that DLC, right, most of the budget goes into creating the initial game, right? There's so much to design, so many art assets to create, so many sound design and soundtracks and script writing and plot writing and everything, right? Investing less money into creating additional content for that game gives people more content at a very low cost to the studio, which is financially really good for the studio. Does that make the studio bad people? No, it doesn't, right? Now, obviously, I'm talking about DLC that has substance. I am not talking about spend $3 and get a new skin for your gun. I'm not talking about...
Yeah, that comes back to my original point, is the developer is allowed to set the pricing and the monetization of the thing they made, and if that is acceptable to you, you get it, and if it's not, you don't. And so, like, for me, cosmetic DLC isn't something that I care enough about to spend money on. Content DLC is. And that's where I live, and that's what I download, and then I'm happy.
Yeah. But I think that getting militantly up in arms about a studio creating content for a game that's already released, even if that, like, when you're creating content, right, you build the game. Now, and as a streamer, we've started to be exposed to this a little bit more. We can get the game a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before it's released in an almost finished build. You can bet your bottom dollar that the game is almost in a finished state weeks before that as well. The last couple of months of development is all polishing and refinement, and that is purely down to, you know, coders and a small art team, for instance. Quality assurance testing. Everybody else at the studio, the artists, the sound designers, the script writers, the engine coders, they're all sitting around twiddling their thumbs because they don't need to be working on that refinement, that quality assurance process. So what does the studio get them to do? Start working on DLC for that game. And if that comes out day one because they got it finished,
Ooh, another trigger word. Day one DLC. How dare they?
Day one DLC. So it's so silly to get upset about content.
Yeah, the distinction between, like, if a developer released 2 games on the same day, no one would even blink. But if they release 1 game and optional content that plays inside that 1 game, suddenly that's different somehow and also evil? How is that evil?
Right. At the end of the day, if the developer says, this is the game, and this is DLC, and that is how they designed it and how they intended it, then you take it as 2 separate things. That is the game, that is DLC. You don't need the DLC to play the game. If you don't think it's worth it, don't buy it. It's very easy.
And as long as... You know, this isn't a conversation about low-quality products. Because that's not what people say they're upset about when they get all bent out of shape that the stuff they want to play is already on the disc, and I can't play it yet, how dare you. Like, it's not about quality. So, you know, if it were, the argument would be that there was some deception in getting you to buy something that wasn't what you wanted to pay for, or wasn't up to the quality standards that you expected. But that's not the conversation. I don't know. I'm repeating myself. I'm going to stop. But really, I can't think of another argument other than they told you what you're paying for. They told you the pricing schedule, and who cares how they delivered it? Who cares what the timing was? Those things don't matter. If it's worth your money, you buy it. If it's not worth your money, you don't. If a studio is really, really bad at evaluating and monetizing the things they make, they will go out of business.
Yep. Let's talk about another game that has DLC coming. Absolutely has DLC coming. And this, I actually got real mad. I had to leave Llama Chat for a little bit, and because I didn't want to be shouty in Llama Chat during a normal Llama cast, because I'm not allowed to be shouty in Llama Chat during a normal Llama cast. It's a little bit more flexibility during metagaming.
It's not that you're not allowed. It's that you respect the tone I try to set in the chat.
Yeah.
And and you're willing to help me set that tone.
So you've been playing a game recently, Llama. I've been playing a little bit of it off stream as well. A game called Total War Dwarf Hammer.
Total Dwarf. Dwarf Hammer.
Total Dwarf Hammer. Mm-hmm. It's a really good game. It's So you have very limited experience with Total War and Total War launches.
Yeah.
On the other hand, have...
This is one where, you know, if the conversation is about buy DLC from people you trust, so you know you won't get something that isn't the quality you expected. It seems, I never played any Total War games, but from what I've heard, this is not the series that you really want to have a lot of trust in.
So, let me talk a little bit about CA, Creative Assembly, and Total War Warhammer. The Total War games have been notoriously up in the air as to whether or not they will release in a playable state. So many of the Total War game launches have been awful. The DLC for them is normally really good. I loved the DLC for Shogun 2, for instance. And some of the DLC they release is like minor, like minimalistic faction stuff and cosmetic changes and things like that. Nothing super huge. But all of their DLC, in my opinion, content DLC has always been worthwhile. And the games are always, reasonably good once they get finished if they release in a poor state. Total War Warhammer, I actually warned Llama. Before the game came out, I messaged Llama and said, hey, so Total War Warhammer's coming out. And Llama said, I've never played a Total War game. I think I'm going to play this one. And I said, just wait.
Give it a couple months.
Wait until after.
Yeah.
Give it a little bit and let it settle just to make sure that it's not unplayable at launch.
Yep.
And a mate of mine, Stejo, look at me, name dropping. He's a YouTuber. He had access to it before day one. And I heard from him that it was excellent, that there were no issues. And I immediately said, Llama, it's fine.
Yeah.
You can play it. And it's really good. But we were watching, or I was watching, you were playing.
Yep.
And some people in your chat were complaining that what Creative Assembly was doing was releasing an unfinished game.
Well,
Now,
this is how every episode of MetaGaming recently has been inspired, is one or two angry people. This is not representative of the entire community, but these people are quite loud and fill up 30 to 40% of the chat channel when they are furiously typing about the thing they're upset about. And then, it seems like there are more of them than there are. And then we respond to them.
So, somebody in your chat was massively complaining, I don't want to spend $60 on this unfinished game only to have to spend another $180 to get the game finished with all of the races. And to them I say, poo-poo to you.
Yeah.
The game is finished with its 4 races, right? That is a game.
Yeah.
I played Total War Shogun 1, and it had 8 factions with incredibly minor statistic tweaks. And it was an amazing game. And Total War Warhammer has 4 individual races with quest lines and voice acting and cinematics and
combat mechanics and strategic layer mechanics that are different. Like, to those people who say, I don't want to spend the money for this game, don't you? I have 2 arguments against you. Argument 1, okay, then don't. Why are you telling me? Argument 2, you're probably telling me because you really do. And the way you express your love is by complaining or something? Because why would you go track down my little Twitch stream and see that I'm playing a game that you hate and are angry about, and then invest time in watching that to complain about it? What?
Somebody in our chat just made an assertion which I think is absolutely accurate. I think Warhammer Total War has more content in it at launch than any previous Total War game. Now, it's not that it has more playable races. It certainly doesn't. It's not that it has more individual units. I don't think it does. I think Medieval takes the cake for that. But from a design and balance standpoint, making each race compelling and individual with such a huge variety. Like, you're talking towering greenskins and stunted dwarves and vampires and undead and humans and hulking chaos warriors and chaos beasts. Like, it's massive.
I try not to respond directly to the Twitch chat during the show. Like, I want this to be a prepared show, but I need to respond to this. Because we've got someone complaining that we're standing up for companies that released unfinished games. You are not listening. we are not standing up for the company for releasing unfinished games. The first thing we said was, we were super wary about Total War Warhammer because this company has a bad track record. Is that standing up for them? No. What we're standing up for is we're standing up for this one release went really well. And if you've been wary about these games, let me tell you that this one went well. I don't understand what's wrong with that. Like, it's okay for someone who failed before to learn from their mistakes and succeed now. And it's okay for me to support them with my money for succeeding.
And saying that the game is unfinished when, like I said, it hands down is the biggest undertaking Creative Assembly has ever taken. And you can bet your bottom dollar that they are working on all of the DLC races, right? And each of those DLC races will come with their own campaign and their own structure. Do people complain that StarCraft is an unfinished game because they released the 3 campaigns as separate games? $60 releases? Like,
yeah.
the three different races in StarCraft 2, it's because Blizzard fanboys, right? But the 3 different races in StarCraft 2 came as 3 different games to get their campaigns, and you'll get the same thing from Total War, probably for like, I don't know, maybe $10 or $15 a race. This is a stab in the dark. I have no information about the costing of races, but
the thing that also additionally set me off is people are complaining about the DLC before it is announced. We have no details. And, if they announce one race for $60, then, let's have a conversation about that, whether that's worth your money. But even that conversation doesn't need to be mad at them. It just needs to be, well, I'm not buying that because it's not worth my money. It's not hard. What's I was thinking about the cast today, I was thinking about how we used to get DLC, which was we would walk down to a store and we would pay full price for a box that was an expansion that required the base game. Right? That's your Warcrafts and your Starcrafts and you would buy an expansion. Diablo did this. And the expansion was a whole game. It cost a whole game. And when we went down there to buy it, we didn't think, I'm getting something that should be for free, herf-a-derf-a-derf. We thought, I am getting a whole game that happens to be a game I already like. And we were okay paying full price for that. And let me be an old man and ramble for a bit, because back in my day, these games were $50. And then the expansion was $50. And in today's money, that is way more than the $60 that you're paying for a AAA title. I looked this up this morning so I would have a number to give you. The $50 I spent on a cartridge for my Nintendo in 1990 with a tiny little game that had 8 pixels in the whole thing, that $50 is $91 today. Games are cheap.
Makes you hurt, doesn't it?
Games are cheap.
Well, unless you live in Australia, where everything costs silly amounts of money. Grumble, grumble, grizzle, grizzle, grumble. But
comparatively to the silly amounts of money that cost 20 years ago, today's silly amount isn't as silly.
It's actually, so I'm going to complain about Australia for a little bit now and go completely off topic. It actually was cheaper to buy, if you go converting money to what it would be worth now compared to what it was. When I was having games bought for me, because I was still quite young when I was playing console games, they were cheaper to buy than console games are now, purely because of import taxes and stuff that have changed in Australia, which is ridiculous. And don't even get me started on digital distribution taxes internationally, because we're so far away. We have to pay extra money because distributing it electronically is so much more expensive because of all of the freight.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, I think Total War Warhammer is excellent. I would be willing to pay, if each of the campaigns is as developed and structured as each of the existing campaigns, I'd be more than happy to pay $10-15 per race and invest $300 into the game, because every race is a new playthrough and a new experience, and that is hours of gameplay. So
yeah, and this comes back to if you go see the same movie several times in the theater, you pay every time. If I come back and play Total War Warhammer, I'm not super interested in playing the Empire. I probably won't
Yep.
play that race. Right? But and I probably won't download all the DLC races. But, I might be super interested if they release Skavens, and I might pick up that one and pay to play my game again. And that's okay. I get to play it again from a fresh perspective. I get to enjoy it again. When you go see a movie 3 times, you're seeing the exact same thing. And you don't complain about paying for it again. I literally do not comprehend the rage about DLC. I don't understand. I really honestly don't.
Right. So we've had a really good rant about DLC, and we've explained that, if you're somebody who complains about DLC, just don't buy it. And if you don't understand why DLC exists and how it's a financially and business responsible thing for developers to do, and it's actually really good for the industry, speaking, and we need to clarify this is content DLC that actually has meat to it. Like DLC that is not reskins and stuff.
I don't know that it even needs meat to it. I think it needs to be DLC that is well advertised, people know what to expect, and then get what they expect. Because if you are a person who loves skins, and it is worth it to you in your multiplayer game to show off your fancy skin on your character, and that is worth your money. That's the argument to me is it worth your money? And as long as the developer isn't trying to slip something past you, as long as they're not trying to trick you and sell you something that isn't what you get, there's nothing to complain about. If you don't want it, don't buy it. I don't understand why that's so difficult.
Neither do I. Let's talk about some post-launch support in the form of non-DLC or free updates, right? I want to talk a little bit about Stellaris, which just recently, I believe, had 1.1 go live, fully live. And while we're at it, talking about Stellaris, I also want to touch on community feedback and community interaction with developers, because I find more and more that I am tending towards, as a streamer, I'm given the opportunity to cover games, right? And sometimes I get to cover games early, and sometimes I get to cover games and then talk to the developers directly via Twitter or Skype or email or whatever it might be. And I have some really interesting conversations with them. But I am leaning more and more towards supporting and promoting the developers and enjoying their games when they are willing to open a dialogue with me and listen to feedback. I recently played a game called The Battle for Sector 219 on stream, and it was hilarious because the game premise is really interesting. I got the key, it was randomly sent out to me. I thought, I'll check this out. I played it on stream, completely blind, learnt the mechanics, and was enjoying the game, and then I beat the AI, and it said, "You lose," and the game locked up. And we had a good chuckle about it, because every time I beat the AI, the game would lock up, and it would tell me that I had lost. And the developers went to the trouble of... they actually went back and watched my VOD, because 3 days later, they sent me a tweet and said, "Hey, Lollash, we're just letting you know, that little bug, we now support mulliganing, and the AI won't force you to lose." And it was really nice to know that even though I didn't provide the feedback directly on a forum or anything, that developer was interested in feedback and was engaged with the community. Now, as a streamer, I have easier access to developers, but even as a consumer, I can imagine it's super important for a lot of people. And Stellaris, and more importantly, Paradox, I think, do a really excellent job of listening to feedback and talking to the community. And that's super important. So, yeah.
Yeah, have you, do you follow the dev blog for Stellaris?
I do, yes.
Because they have their next 3 or 4 patches sort of outlined, and the ones that are nearer to coming out are in more detail, and the one that recently came out addressed every complaint that I've heard from the community, and every complaint that I had The major ones were addressed in the 1.1 patch. The patch notes I read weren't super detailed on how they were addressed, and I haven't picked up the game since then, so I don't know if they were done well. I can't speak to that, but they were on target with what the community wants for the game. And anything that wasn't in the first patch is at least outlined in 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And they're doing a great job of
things take long to work
responding to the community, for sure.
And the other thing that Paradox has done in the past is they're really good about providing, like, some of the content. People complain, all right? Okay, I'm going back to ranting, but to hell with it, because this is why I'm here. So, people also complain, particularly when we were playing games like Stellaris, that I don't know if I want to invest in a Paradox game because it will steal my entire wallet because they have so much DLC, right? There's 2 points I want to make here, and this is specifically about Paradox, and I'm a big fan of Paradox. I'll admit it, okay? I'm a little biased. I like Paradox. Paradox has given me multiple keys in the past, if anyone cares. I got Stellaris for free. I also got Hearts of Iron today. So I might be a little bit, I have a relationship with them, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. But I want to talk about 2 things. First of all, why are you complaining that there's lots of DLC that consistently changes the game and makes it better or fresh and interesting? Why is that a problem? Like, especially with a game that you can invest thousands of hours into. If you invest 100 hours into Stellaris, and then they release a paid DLC, and you invest another 100 hours into it, and it costs you an extra $10, why are you complaining? Don't complain that there's too much DLC.
Well, and
I want DLC to come all the time for games that I like.
There is one fair complaint, which is, I really like this game, and I want to play the new content, and I also want to eat this week, and that makes me sad. Right? But that's sadness, not anger.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, if you can't afford to buy the DLC right now and that makes you sad, that's fine.
Yeah,
but don't complain there's too much.
And come hang out with us, and we'll play on stream, and you can live vicariously until you have eaten enough ramen to save up for the DLC. And, we will console you in your sadness. I just don't want you to come in and be angry. Because I don't understand it. There's no point to that anger.
Yeah. And the second thing I want to make in relation to Paradox Grand Strategy games is you complain an awful lot about all of the paid DLC, and yet nobody congratulates them on all of the free updates and consistent tweaks and balance changes that they make. Like, Stellaris already has 4 major patches, and we're not talking about, purely bug fixes, which is what most companies do. It's mostly about, fixing the occasional bug or fixing some weird interaction that's broken or overpowered. We're talking about sweeping changes to systems and implementation of new systems, and all of these things are coming for free. So don't you think they deserve a little extra money for some of the content they produce? I don't know.
Yeah, well, and at the end of the day, it's up to them to decide what they charge for and what they don't. And it's up to us to decide what we'll pay for and what we won't. And, White Fluid makes a point that I'm going to read from the Twitch chat also. It's like getting into a relationship with a hot girl. Then, once you're together, she turns out to be really expensive. You don't just say no to something she wants and yes to the rest. You want to keep that honeymoon alive as long as possible. And then after it's said and done, you realize you've wasted a lot of money. And now you're spiteful. And that's true. And I would argue that you really enjoyed that game, and that maybe you didn't realize how much money you were spending on it, but you chose to spend it, and you enjoyed the things you got for spending it, and I can understand why there would be some anger at the end of the day when you look at your bank account balance and go, why? Why do I buy every single thing? But to me, that's done out of love. not
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
being tricked. And, this isn't a show about microtransactions, and I probably won't ever do one. Maybe, have we already done one? I think we've brought it up before.
We did.
But, there are tricky ways to try and get more money than people realize they are spending. And I hope that no DLC has done that to you. But that is an understandable sentiment. That is not the rage that I don't understand. That is sadness mixed with a little bit of betrayal and anger that I absolutely do understand.
And I think that's an excellent thing, right? I think that's an excellent thing. So the point of today was, first of all, we wanted to rant a little bit about stupid, whiny, entitled people. And we wanted to let them know the reasons why it's silly to be stupid and whiny, and give them some insight into why, if you're not happy, just don't spend the money and don't complain because, like the perfect example, Total War Warhammer. Months ago, they told us there would be 4 races. They told us there would be day 1 DLC that would be free if you bought it within the first week. Like, you knew this was going to be a thing. If you invested in the game, you invested knowing that you would have those 5 races, and the rest of the races would likely come as DLC, and that would cost you money. You knew this. There is no defense. You made the choice to buy the game. Don't be salty because it's not finished. And so, that was the first thing we wanted to cover, and we wanted to make sure that people knew that, we don't hate you if you don't like a particular kind of DLC.
Yeah.
And just please don't, ruin it for other people by being negative about it in public. If you don't like it, you just...
That's a big thing for me. That's one of the reasons I wanted to go back and say that it's okay to like cosmetic DLC. I made a point of saying that because just because I don't find that valuable in general doesn't mean you can't. Please do. I think League of Legends, a major part of their monetization is everything is available for free, but you can have shiny skins for money. And they're wildly successful because people like shiny skins for money, and you're allowed to like that. And please allow other people to like what they like. And running around being super upset doesn't make you feel better, and it doesn't make other people feel better.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. And that's sort of the whole element of DLC. So, we've got that covered. And we've talked a little bit about post-launch support. If a developer is listening to the community, if they are, taking your suggestions or just suggestions that are on the forums to heart, and they are engaging with the community, show them some love. Because it's so important for a game developer to do that well. And when a game developer does it well, they deserve support, especially if there's, if there's rough patches. There were elements of Stellaris, for instance, that when it launched, I was really unhappy about.
Yep.
I was really unhappy about certain elements. There were certain things that really frustrated me. But because of the consistent dev diaries, because of the tweets and the streams and the forum posts and active community manager, I accepted that things would be changed and that feedback was being taken. And now 1.1 comes out and I look at it and go, hey, I'm probably going to go play some more Stellaris sometime soon. Having a knee-jerk reaction to anything is typically a bad idea, unless it's being shot in the knee. It's...
Well, and it's okay to be disappointed, right? I really liked Stellaris, and once I got deep enough into it to understand the flaws, I was kind of disappointed. And then they fixed them, because the developer is responsible and continues to develop their games. And now I'm happy again.
Let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing, Llama. Because we've got a bit of time before we need to wrap the cast up. What have you been playing for the last couple of weeks?
I have been playing a lot of Total War Warhammer. I love my dwarfs. They are really fun. I was talking to somebody, and I would love just a string of tactical missions. There's a little too much that I have to do in the strategy layer to continue my string of tactical missions. I really like the battle map and crashing big armies of dwarves into big armies of goblins. And like that is refreshing and new to me. It's a new style of strategy that I haven't played with these game mechanics before, and I am absolutely loving it. And somebody the other day told me that they like the strategy layer and they kind of skip all the combat. And I was really surprised by that because I'm the opposite, and the strategy layer is the thing that I slog through to get to the combat, and that was like different people like different things. But anyway, Total War Warhammer I've been playing, really, really like it. I've been playing Alien Hunters, really, really like that. We talked about that earlier. I played for the first time because my patrons picked it. I played Mount and Blade Warband, and that was surprisingly enjoyable. I struggle with sandbox games because I have a hard time finding things to do, and that game had a little bit of sandbox struggle for me, but I'm glad I stuck with it because I had a ton of fun riding around on my horse and whacking at people with a sword. That was super great.
It's been really good. I've been streaming again, Llama. I'm super excited about this. I actually streamed 5 days in a row.
That's good.
Yeah. 65-day challenge. I missed a day because of internet issues, but I've been playing a lot of Alien Hunters on the stream. I beat a commander playthrough in like 3 days, so in like 18 hours, which is pretty good. And I beat, or rather, I lost 3 legend campaigns. I need to find somebody in my chat whose sole job it is to show up and stay for the 6 hours. And if a soldier dies, they just ask me one question. Are they carrying a special weapon? And I would, I need that in my life. Because I've lost 2 campaigns because I accidentally left special weapons behind.
Oh.
Because I'm dumb at that. And it's a big problem.
I've been playing my campaign on Save Scum-orama. I am a filthy save scummer because this is my learning my new game campaign. So I lost my Iron Man campaign to the Berserker Queen in one turn. Everyone was dead or unconscious. And then I started the next one on not Iron Man on purpose. And the first time I saw the Archon King, I wasn't ready and I'd been playing stupidly, and he ruined my day. And I lost 2 troops that I don't think I could lose and still win the game. And so I went back and played him again and lost 1 troop who was really important, but we're going to soldier on. But I think it's like learning how he works. You know, it's really subtle. You want to save a guy with the stock until the very end because he's going to pick somebody up and fly, and if you miss, that guy dies. Stocks don't miss. So you save that for the end. You can't use your other automatic hit stuff are grenades and he's not on the ground. So like that isn't something that I'd thought of before that first encounter, and you know that like I just am really enjoying that learning. And I'll probably go back and play it again, Iron Man, just to do it.
It's been a lot of fun. I checked out some Hearts of Iron 4 today. I'm not allowed to review it. I can say that I'm going to be playing some more of it tomorrow. After I read the beginner's guide. It is very complicated, but it's a really interesting take on grand strategy because it's played over such a short time frame, right? Like, you know how in Stellaris it's played over months, you know, like
hundreds of years even.
Hundreds of years, but like each major increment is like a month.
Yeah.
In Hearts of Iron 4, each major increment is like a day.
Okay. Because it's set in... And they only have like 4 years for the whole game.
Well, the game starts in 1936 and runs through till like 1951 or something, if you want it to, I believe. I haven't checked because I only got it today. But yeah, I believe it runs like right through until after the war. But it's because it's played in such a short time frame, there's a real sort of different feel because it's more about managing supply lines and battle lines and tactical elements and like creating plans for your troops and initiating battle plans. And it plays very similar to other Paradox grand strategies like EU4, but it feels completely different because it's played on such a smaller scale. Not a smaller. Smaller is the wrong word because it is still a global map, right?
But the time scale
it looks
is compressed.
Yeah. Shorter would be a better word than smaller. But I think I'm going to really enjoy it, and I'm definitely going to play it. And if you have time to sit down and read a beginner's guide at some stage, Llama, I would recommend you pick it up and play it as well, because it looks really good. It's just there's a lot of stuff to learn, right? Same as any Paradox
game.
It's not baby's first grand strategy like Stellaris.
Maybe because of Stellaris, it won't be completely impenetrable to me if I pick it up.
Maybe it's still really. There's a lot of things. But I've been playing that, and is there anything else I've been playing off stream that I've picked up recently? I mentioned the battle for Sector.
Yeah.
What is it?
219? I don't remember what you said.
I think that's it. But yeah, it's 219, Battle for Sector 219, which is a digital adaptation of a card game, which is very simple. Like, the card game is very simple, but there's a fair bit of tactical strategy involved. I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting. And I'm probably going to try it again, although I probably won't stream it. I think I'll just try it off stream. But that's really all I've been playing. There's nothing else.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get back to Stellaris. I've been meaning to get back to Kerbal Space Program. I played for like 2 days, and then a bunch of other games interrupted me. And that's got to get done eventually. I need some more Kerbal Space Program in my life. But what are you looking forward to other than Hearts of Iron? What's coming up?
So Hearts of Iron 4 is coming up, obviously, and I'm excited about that because Paradox fanboy. There's a game coming out that I've heard very little about, but I got a key sent to me, and I'm going to check it out. A game called Turmoil, which looks quite interesting.
Yeah, I just got a key for that today also.
It's like a small, casual, indie, sort of tycoon-y style game about managing a oil baron business thing, which is kind of interesting. Is there anything else that's coming out? I mean, this quarter has been strategy quarter, right? We've had Stellaris, Total War Warhammer, Hearts of Iron 4 has come out. Like, there's so much strategy releasing at the moment. XCOM 2 was, only a couple of months ago. How am I supposed to play all these games? They're all games that need 1,000 hours in.
Well, and Civ 6 is coming out, like, really, really soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, strategy games for the longest time have been sort of relegated to the occasional Civ game, the occasional Total War game, and the Paradox releases, right? But they were all sort of spread out. And then this year, they're just... They don't stop. There's so many. Hey, do we have a release date for Shen's Gift yet? Shen's Last Gift?
Not that I've heard. That doesn't mean there isn't one. I'm really bad at keeping up on news.
So am I.
What do you think? Let's speculate. What do you think Shen's Last Gift is?
So, Firaxis has tipped us off that it's going to be a major content release, right?
Yep.
They said it was going to be the biggest of the DLCs.
Yeah.
Alien Hunters was fairly big and comprehensive, really. Like, when you think about the amount of work that went into the new systems and stuff.
So Alien Hunters gave us new weapons, new enemies. But not really... New weapons, new enemies, new armor. And a new mission. But not really new soldiers? No new class? I think that might be something they're saving for Shen's. And I think it's not mechs. I know a lot of people want mechs. But I think they're going to not do mechs because it's too obvious.
And it was also already done before, right? Yeah. Like, when you look at their psionics, it's so different to old psionics. Yeah. So different that it's like a whole new system. And I doubt that we'll see a mech. Maybe it's vehicles.
You know what I want?
Like the old tanks from XCOM?
I honestly, the thing I want is a shiv. And
what about a tank-sized shiv?
This is coming from the guy who avoided ever building shivs in Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within and Long War. People were like, just build a shiv. And I was like, no, shivs are dumb. No. But I really want shivs. I don't know that that's what I expect it to be, but that's what I want. I think that it might be a new soldier class that is not a mech built with meld and made of arms and legs chopped off.
Mech.
But like an exosuit specialist.
Okay.
What if Shen's last gift is interceptors and UFOs? And we have an air game put back into the game, but it's good this time. Let's go ahead and put but it's good this time so that we can be excited about it instead of terrified.
Somebody in my chat, like a few days ago, joked that Shen's last gift is just going to be a small video and voiceover by the original Shen actor saying that Lily is his gift to XCOM and that he loves her dearly, and it'll just be like a minute-long video clip, CGI and voiceover, and that'll be it. That'll be Shen's last gift. But, I don't know. There are many different things that could come in Shen's last gift. I'm almost positive we'll get a new class. I think we'll get a new set of story missions.
Yeah, more than one.
Like instead of, I think the Nest and the Alien Leaders sort of gives you a series of missions because you've got the Nest and then the Leaders keep showing up and being pains.
Right.
But I think you'll get actual story missions that are structured. Not necessarily structured maps, but structured formats with maybe some different and new objectives.
Yeah, well, we're accustomed to the DLC being like 3 missions, right? We had Deluge on the dam, and then we had I guess Portent was before that, and then Deluge,
Portent, Deluge, and
then the
Furies. I don't know. I'm excited for it anyway. If it's polished as well as Alien Hunters was, and adds new systems to the game like Alien Hunters did, then they've got my money.
Yeah.
Just like throw it at the screen. Take my money. But yeah, no, I'm pretty thrilled. Okay, well, bit of a shorter podcast, but I think we said we've said everything we want to say. I don't have any distant gems or anything to talk about.
No, I feel like super swamped. I've just been really busy the last couple of weeks, and I'm swamped in the stuff I'm meant to do to be like a functional adult human being, as well as like I just can't play all these games right now. And so I haven't been looking out for what to get next because I still have too many things to finish.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I can understand that. It's overwhelming. There's just so many things that you want to play, and none of them are like short experiences either. They're all big long sort of. They're not appetizers. They're not like snacks. They're full steaks and salad and chips and bacon and sausages and mushrooms and everything, and you can't eat it all because you don't have the time because there's so many other meals that you must sample. Anyway, I'm going to go, and I'm going to let you go play whatever you're going to play. What are you going to play today, Llama?
I might spend half an hour to an hour with Turmoil just to see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I haven't decided if I want to be Dwarfs or Alien Hunters. I am so torn between loving both of these games. It feels very... Usually, there's just one game that I'm really excited about, and I'll take a break from it to play something else so it doesn't get old or whatever. But usually, like, it's not a problem for me at all. And I am just struggling between these two. And I was hoping that I would decide by the time the podcast was over and be able to tell people, but that's not where I'm at. Maybe you could stay and brainstorm with me for a couple seconds after we wrap up. Yeah,
possibly. I can do that. All right, well, if you're watching MetaGaming on YouTube, we do broadcast this live at twitch.tv/LlamaChomp. And if you're watching on Twitch, we'll have a little outro-y thingy, and then we'll be back to talk to you. Is there anything else we need to say? Are we going to...
I am excited to read angry YouTube comments. The last time we casually mentioned DLC and that you shouldn't be super angry at it, we got the best angry YouTube comment. So please yell at me and tell me why I'm wrong. It will be fun to read your anger. No, it won't. I don't know why I'm saying that. I don't actually like anger. That was the whole point. Because I don't enjoy reading anger. I will dismiss you after one sentence if you're angry.
He's being facetious. All right. Well, Llama, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And this has been MetaGaming. We should go.
Yes. This has been MetaGaming. You have been thoroughly metagamed. We'll be back in 2 weeks.